I'd like to go ahead and call to order the meeting of the Sutter Butte Flood Control Agency on October 8th, 2025. May we have roll call, please?
Jeff Stevens. Here. Mike Ziegenmeyer.
Here.
Bruce Johnson.
Here.
Bill Conley.
Here.
Bo Shepherd.
Here.
Mark Boomgarden.
Here.
Al Motna. Here. Drew Stresser. Here. Mike Morris.
Here.
Chris Schmidl.
Here. All right, Commissioner Ziegenmeyer will be leading us in the pledge. Please join. Public comment. Members of the public will be allowed to address the Sutter Butte Flood Control Agency's Board of Directors on items of interest to the public that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Any member of the audience who may wish to bring a matter before the board that has not been placed on the agenda may do so at this time. However, state law provides that no action may be taken on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak? Seeing none, we'll move to the consent calendar. Consent calendar groups together those items which are considered non-controversial or for which prior policy direction has been given to staff and that require only routine action by the board. The chair will advise the audience that the matters may be adopted in total by one motion. However, the board may, at its option or upon request of a member of the public, consider any matter separately. Anything from the public that needs to be removed? Anything that the board desires to have removed? I'd like to entertain a motion on the consent calendar.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
There we go.
Who seconded? Okay, we got to, did you get those, Tara? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the consent calendar's been approved unanimously. Informational and possible approval items. The information item regarding the potential refinancing of outstanding bonds and additional borrowing. I think we'll start this with Mr. Bissett.
Yeah, just very quickly. So Seth, our budget manager, is going to present some information to the board. And it's about bond refunding and possible additional borrowing. But Seth's going to run through the options. And then we'll turn it back to the board and get some feedback and hopefully some direction from the board about how they would like to see staff move forward. So with that said, Seth, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Michael, members of the board. So just a quick overview. So I'll review our portfolio of existing bonds, talk about the opportunity for savings, and then there's some options we'd like to review with the board on whether or not to just do a refunding only or refunding and potentially combine that bond transaction to generate some new money for future projects. So, and then I'll talk about the next steps and schedule. So with respect to our existing assessment revenue bonds, we have two series of bonds. We issued $41 million of bonds in 2013 and another $47.1 million in 2015. Those two series have their final maturities are 2043 and 2045 respectively. The combined outstanding principal after we make our debt service payments in this month will be about $71.13 million. We're talking about potentially refunding about $43 million of principal out of that outstanding amount today. We've looked at interest rates, but the interest rates on the refunding bonds vary between 3 3/8 to 5%. All the bonds are now redeemable with no early penalty. There's a 10-year call provision it's pretty standard for municipal bonds that you can't call those bonds for 10 years. And so now that we have passed that 10-year mark on their 2015 series, we're able to combine and do a more efficient redemption of bonds. We had looked at the in 2023, we looked at refunding a portion of those bonds. It just wasn't very efficient. So now that we can do about $43 million of bonds, it makes more sense. The debt service on those bonds is about $5.5 million, or our debt service on our bonds is about $5.5 million annually. We have a bond covenant that requires us to levy assessments at 110% of that debt service. We levy at our max. We generate about 6.23 million, and from non-governmental entities. We have to isolate the portion of the assessments that are on non-governmental entities when we're looking at that covenant. And so we have an opportunity with that savings to take that net revenue over the 110% debt on debt service and potentially issue new debt. So that's what we're going to talk about as an option. So with respect to, sorry, it was about 46 million of bonds. The opportunity for savings on our, for refunding bonds, we can refinance about $46 million of the outstanding bonds. Current market conditions are favorable for lower borrowing costs. Essentially, the net present value of the savings we would experience is about 2 to 5% of the refunding of that 46 million. That results in an annual savings of between $85,000 and $200,000 a year. This is depending upon interest rates. So that's the bracket that we looked at, current markets plus another 40 basis points on that when we were looking at whether or not this would be efficient, and incorporating costs of issuance and all consulting fees, underwriting costs, surety bond, bond insurance, taking all that into consideration. Again, we have the potential on a net present value basis to save between $1 to $2.5 million. What we would do with that savings is that capacity could be used for projects on a pay-go basis or used to combine and with our issuance to generate some new proceeds. So that's the staff's recommendation will be to move forward with the refunding. The question really is to the board, and that we're looking for input on, is whether or not to add new money today or consider adding new money in the future and banking the savings today to prepare for a later project on the Sutter Bypass East Levee. So essentially, either way, we would have about $3.5 to $4.5 million of more funds available between 2028 and 2030 when we go forward to move forward with that project. The question is, do we want to remove some uncertainty about future interest rates with respect to borrowing costs and yield on cash in the bank, and lock in that cash today, or look at doing a potential issuance in the future, depending upon whether or not we have a cost-sharing partner to advance that project. In any case, any new bonds issued would be structured within the term of our current maturity and assessment authorization, which is in October 2045. So we're not talking about extending the assessment and levying additional taxes. This would not cost property owners any more. It's just to whether or not we want to generate proceeds today to be able to deploy those in the future. The debt on any new issuance would be serviced using the annual savings from the refunding and any assessments that we have available to us as a result of growth in the assessment districts, staying within that 110% of debt service requirement. The reason that the opportunity is presented today is when you issue tax-exempt debt, you have to have a reasonable expectation that you will spend those proceeds within 36 months. We have an active construction project with the Tudor Flood Risk Reduction Project. And so if we issue debt today, what we would do is authorize the use of that money to pay the balance of the construction contract, thereby saving us the cash we have in the bank so that we could use it in the future, 3 to 4 years down the road, for the Sutter Bypass East Levee project. So part of the benefit, like if we didn't have a place to spend that money, this wouldn't even be in consideration. The fact that we have an active project kind of allows us to get around that IRS rule of having a reasonable expectation to deploy the money. So essentially, we have cash available to us today that has no restrictions for that active construction project. We would just swap that cash out for any new money that we issue today. So that's just a way to get around that reasonable expectation rule. So just in order to be efficient and to be thorough in our evaluation, What we wanted to do was look at the opportunity to issue new debt as part of this refunding issuance because of the cost efficiency of doing a transaction. So essentially, the evaluation is when will we need that money? That's really the crux of the question that the board could consider. There's the opportunity to issue now, and holding all things equal, we would save about $250,000 in cost of issuance, and take advantage of the cost efficiency of a debt issuance today. If we needed that money in 2028, it would be more economical to do that issuance today, because we wouldn't have as much time to save and build up interest on the pay-as-you-go basis. But if we defer that potential borrowing past 2028 to mid-2030, it could be more economical to wait, as long as we don't see interest rates going up by more than about 50 basis points or 0.5%. Basically, that savings and that cost of issuance comes from banking the revenues that we have in net cash flow and earning interest on that would offset that cost of issuance. But the offset to that is the interest rate risk. There will always be an option to issue new debt if we don't move forward with it today. It's just you take on the risk of maybe having, in hindsight, having been better off if interest rates are too high in the future. The thing that really we want to take into consideration is that if we don't necessarily have a cost-sharing partner for that project in the future. And so if we don't have that cost-sharing project, what do we do with those proceeds that we have? There could be the opportunity to redeem bonds in the future, the portion of the debt service that we don't refund, but because we will have spent those proceeds on an actual project. So it's just really a question of timing. When we evaluated whether or not it made sense to do an issuance today or do an issuance in 2030, you're really only talking about maybe about a few $100,000 difference in essentially cash balance available to us. So it's more a question of whether or not the board has the perspective of we want to have those resources available to us today, take out that interest rate uncertainty, or wait in the future until we know we have an actual cost-sharing partner, and then we can do an issuance then. There could be an option to do a private placement with a bank. We would get into that market where the term of the bonds would be a 15-year issuance if we issued new bonds in 2030 or did a private placement in 2030. And that would present an opportunity for us to do a private placement with a bank. Any longer term, you're really out of that private placement market. So it's really about timing and whether or not the board has an appetite. We know that based on our strategic plan, we know that we need to advance a project on the Sutter Bypass East Levee to provide 100-year level of flood protection. So it was really more about staff in this exercise looking at the opportunity, making sure that we did a thorough analysis and presenting an option to the board. So what we're looking at from the board today is, I don't think there's a question about doing a refunding. That's going to save us money no matter what. It's about whether or not we want to add money to that deal today to lock in and have that cash, or wait until the future when we have more certainty around cost sharing and the ability to know that the costs are on that project. There will be enough project to spend the money on no matter what. We know there's more work out there than we have available resources to us. It's just a matter of having a cost-sharing partner to get an efficient project done. So, issuing new money bonds now provides better certainty of the availability of project funds. However, this is offset by uncertainty around available project partner funds. If cost sharing doesn't materialize, we've locked in that debt service obligation for new money today. There will be options in the future. They just may not be as efficient as they are today. So that's where we're seeking board feedback on, is whether we want to do option one, just a refunding only, or option two, a refunding with new money. Ultimately, we'd come back to the board in November with materials for approval if we have clear direction today.
Michael, did you want to add anything, or do you want me to open it up to the board?
Just real quick, I think Seth did a great job of outlining the situation. I mean, myself, staff, we believe that going out and issuing or refunding the existing bonds and saving the agency money is a no-brainer. So we think we should move in that direction, and we would seek the board's approval for that. The question is, and what we wanted to evaluate, as Seth outlined, is does it make sense at this time to also pull out additional cash and be better prepared to advance the Sutter Bypass East levy? Seth outlined the uncertainties of having a cost share partner in, say 2028. We're going after the FEMA grant. So we don't know if we're going to be successful there. Will we have that money to advance the 5-mile construction project? Nor do we know if DWR is going to be willing to advance the design and permitting of the remainder of the bypass. So we have those uncertainties. Having cash in the bank helps incentivize the state, in our opinion. But there's also the cost, the carrying cost of having that money sitting there for 3 years, 4 years, and we're paying interest on it. So we evaluated it to see if it made sense to recommend to the board to advance that right now. We also looked at if we didn't do that and we went out in 3 to 4 years and went after new money, a new financing, does that cost more? Is that more costly to the agency? And it didn't appear to be that much so where it was a no-brainer to do the new money right now. So that's why we wanted to put that out there to the board so you evaluate what the options are, the analysis that we did, and we'd like to have a discussion with the board on that right now. So I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I think first and foremost, if we can get option one and approval on option one, then I'm thinking probably most of the discussion is going to be on issuance of the new stuff. Is everybody okay with them going out and refinancing option one right now?
I have a question.
Do you have questions?
Yes.
Okay, then we'll punt and we'll go back the other way and we'll open up for questions.
There's no value of waiting until the end of December when we have 50 basis points less, or is that just, there's not a big enough difference to worry about a half a point?
No, the soonest we could probably go to market would be in December. So the board would need to take an action. They would need to approve the items that I've here listed under the second bullet in November. And then we would do a bond sale between 4 to 8 weeks later. We have to go through a credit rating process, et cetera. When we evaluated this, we said, well, what would happen? Does it still make sense to move forward with a project, with a refunding, even if there's a 50 basis point increase? And as long as you get about 2 to 3% savings on the refunded bonds, municipal finance kind of standards tell you, yes, move forward with that effort.
It's pretty obvious we're going to have a cut, so.
Yeah, I mean, and it's only better if interest rates go down as an issuer. So, yeah, we always want to look at, well, what happens if the market fluctuates and there's an increase? Does it still make sense? If you're just teetering on that 2 to 3% of savings on the refunded bonds, it probably doesn't make a lot of sense to incur a bunch of consulting costs. And so we always analyze it with an extra, cushion of a 40 to 50%.
There's no way to do it quickly, so you can't just drag forever waiting for the, I don't know.
Well, there's a minimum amount of time. Essentially, we need to prepare documents, an offering document. An offering document would get a little stale if we waited, but essentially what we would do is in November, bring back to the board a set of parameters, an outside envelope like maximum bond issuance, maximum interest rates, et cetera, that the board would approve. And then we would go out and work with an underwriter to essentially optimize the best timing for the market. They would market the sale, get some appetite, know they have some buyers, some customers that are willing to take down portions of the bonds. And then, so long as there's not some event in the market that would otherwise increase interest rates very quickly, we would move forward with a sale. If they were outside the board's approved parameters, we wouldn't move forward.
Thank you.
Mr. Mono.
Seth, what are we earning on our cash?
We looked at LAIF interest rates, and I think they were in our analysis. I'm trying to remember that number. Let's see the notes on this. I think LAIF was about it's somewhere like 3 to 4%. It's not huge. I mean, we combine our funds with the treasury of the city of Yuba City, so it's within their investment policy. So I'd have to go back and look at the latest treasury report. But when we were evaluating our cash flow analysis on efficiency, I think Dan Cox is our municipal advisor with KNN Public Finance, and I think it was like 3.7% is what I think he used.
I think county pays better, Jeff. Anyway, well, that's an important number because that's going to, of course, cut the cost to hold this money. But I don't know, my crystal ball, although the Fed appears they're going to cut, some of the governors are saying maybe with the new inflation numbers and new job numbers, that may not be the case. So we'll see. And you'll have a new president in 28, so you'll have a new philosophy on the Fed too. But my question to you, Michael, is what's your recommendation? I mean, it's kind of, I think we're just kind of splitting hairs here because the amount of money in 4 years or whatever is 200,000 or 300,000 or whatever in 26, 27, 28. And you're probably going to have a partner by then, I would hope.
Yeah, we hope so.
To move forward. But I think what's your recommendation on the probability of us moving forward on the East Bypass or not? Well,
I mean, we're pushing hard on Sutter Bypass East Levee. The question is, do we take out new money now, right? My personal feeling is that we just move forward with the refinancing of the existing debt and not pull out additional money just because of some of the uncertainties. And once we have those uncertainties more clarified in the future, we would be able to go out and pull out new money at that time. That would be my recommendation to the board.
That's what I think the board's looking for. And then, Chairman, I'd move we do the existing money now,
I'll second
not the
that.
refinance.
I'd like to say that when we're dealing with the public's money and you mentioned risk, however small, I think we should always err on the side of no risk.
Yep.
And see what happens later. Whenever you're saying we're looking at a crystal ball or something like that, that's cool if it's my money, but not my grandma's, So I second it. Thank you.
Any other questions? So what I'm hearing is that they just need direction in regards to, basically it would be option one. Is that correct?
Go out and get the money.
Everybody in favor of option one, just thumbs up since it's a direct.
Don't need a motion? Okay.
No.
I think this is very helpful to understand the board's perspective on this. And Director Mon, when we were looking at the interest rates, I'm recalling now, we started at 3 in the cash flow analysis, started at about 3.95 and then lowered that down to 3 to be conservative on our assumptions. So it wasn't a static number when we were modeling out what our cash balance would be. We started at about, I think, 3.7 to 3.8, and then we worked it down to 3 for purposes of future conservatism on the analysis. Just so the board understands, there were 4 different scenarios that we looked at, so refunding, adding new money now, adding new money in 28, adding new money in 30, and then looked at different interest rate scenarios, 40 to 50 basis points, and then current market, and then a future at 50 basis points. So there were 12 different scenarios that we analyzed and looked at different results of that. So I wanted the board to understand that we looked at this thoroughly in different scenarios. And so, I think that having that direction from the board to just move forward with this deal will, as a refunding only, is appreciated.
Well, that's plenty conservative, I think, Seth, because you look at bonds today, you look at 30-year and the 10-year, and then you look at the flight to gold and the flight to other currencies. Bonds are probably going to hold up there, so your yields are going to be pretty good on your cash, I think. Not below that, I'd guess.
Well, I hope that they're lower. The lower, the better for us as an issuer.
Not on a return, though.
No.
Cash.
Not on a return on our cash, no. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Item number 4, receive and file the monthly financial reports, the June accruals in August 2025.
Good afternoon. So like the chairman said, this report covers monthly financials through June in our accrual period for 24-25 fiscal year, and then August of for being the second period of 25-26. So ending working capital through the end of August was 18 million. Estimated to date about 20.7 million. Revenue for 24-25, we received 750,000 through 24-25. About $1 million pending, and I'll explain why in a bit here, even though the accrual period is pretty much wrapped up. And received to date for the current fiscal year is 0. Capital revenue, about 8.9 million, and about 13 million total with pending. For the current fiscal year, about 1.4 million in pending, and nothing yet logged. That difference with pending to actuals, about 5.7 million, is a little bit further broken down here. Some of it, about 66,000 in like late assessment revenue received, but also about 4.7 million, just under 4.7 million in state grants. But the difference, obviously, between the 5.7 million and that 4.6 million is interest that we had earned, the agency had earned for 24-25, which had posted. That exact number is 1.018 million. Try to get ahead here. The expenditures through 24-25 were about 8.4 million through the accrual period. For the current period, current fiscal year 25-26, just under $1 million. Debt service, which was Seth had discussed a little bit, but in actual payments, we had paid our October debt service, and the next one due would be in April, and that is about 1.5 million. So some ongoing activities for the upcoming month. Still just grant management mostly. Close out on our CNRA grant, and then our RFMP round 4 grant. But the RFMP 5 is also underway too, so there's some overlap there. We also have our audit is underway. I just received yesterday the capitalized data set. So, you know, we're on good timing for that. Wilden had also disseminated our assessment roll, and property tax bills should have gone out for that as well. And then obviously Seth was talking about the bond refunding opportunities. So just open up for questions now.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you for your report. All right, item number 5, presentation and file program/project update. Mr. Michael Bissett.
Hey, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, welcome to flood season. We're in October, and that's the official start of flood season. So I want to highlight a lot of the projects that we have underway here. So the Tudor Flood Risk Reduction Project, we're in active construction, as we've been discussing all summer long and now into the fall. Our contractor is working 10-hour days, 6 days a week, and now he's starting to work on Sundays due to the fact that we've gotten some initial rains here in October. We're in the process of reconstructing the levee now, all the work that has been done all summer long. I'm gonna highlight a little bit on the next slide. Why don't we go to the next slide, Tara? So I want to kind of walk you through how the project unfolded. We got this from our design engineer. So this is the limits. Next slide, please. So this shows on the right is the Highway 99 bridge, and then on the left is the Sutter bypass. So that's the limits of our 1.6 mile project. Next slide, please. So that was in red there was cutoff wall heading number 1. So that's where the contractor first started the project at the Sutter bypass and started the construction of heading number 1. Next slide. This shows where the pipe locations are. So we have 2 pipes essentially in this location. One is the private pipe from Odysseus Farms. It's the up and over pipe. And then we have an at-grade gravity pipe pretty much underneath the 20-inch pipe. So they're all in the general same location. Next slide, please. This was heading number 2. So they started from the Highway 99 bridge and headed west towards the pipes. So that was heading number 2. Next slide, please. And that's the last heading. Heading number 3 was when they degraded the levee where the pipes were, removed the pipes, constructed the cutoff wall, and completed the entire wall. So it's one wall from the Highway 99 bridge all the way to the bypass. That's our new cutoff wall that's installed and in place right now. Next slide, please. One more. So, and then they started levee regrade operations. So after all of the cutoff wall construction was completed, levee regrade, so building the levee back up, started where heading number 1 was. So reconstructing the levee from the bypass towards the pipes. Next slide. Doing the same thing from the Highway 99 bridge, working their way toward the pipes. So that's in active construction right now. Next slide, please. And one more. Oh, that was it. So thank you. And now they're reconstructing the levee throughout the entire 1.6 miles. So by the end of this month, in the next couple of weeks, we'll have the levee all fully regraded. We'll have the all-weather surface installed on top of the levee, and we'll be ready for winter by the end of this month. We'll start working into November also to do the final buttoning up of the project site, hydro-seeding the levee slopes, and winterizing the site until they come back next year to do the pipe installations. Okay, next slide, please. So that was the Tudor flood risk reduction project. On the Sutter Bypass East Levee, a lot of which we talked about on Seth's presentation to talk about how we're going to finance, the entire Sutter Bypass East Levee project. But right now we're in design and permitting of the 5.2 miles. Our design team is at 90% designed. We've gotten comments back from the state and our independent panel of experts. Our team is addressing all of those comments. We're still waiting on comments from the Army Corps. We're hoping to get those soon. And then we'll be able to deal with comments in advance towards a 100% design package. At the same time, we're working on our FEMA hazard mitigation grant application. So we submitted the application, the pre-app or pre-submittal to Cal OES just last month. And assuming we get the green light to advance that, and we assume we will, we'll submit the full application to FEMA in the spring of next year. So that's in replacement of the BRIC application that we were successful on, but the whole BRIC program got removed by the new Trump administration. So that BRIC program is no longer viable, even though there are lawsuits going on about that, and we're hopeful that something positive will come from that. But at the same time, we're pivoting and advancing our HMGP grant. The one aspect that I wanted to point out, and we didn't really talk about it in Seth's presentation, but the BRIC program was a more favorable cost share program. It was a 90% federal, 10% non-fed. The HMGP is 75% fed and 25% non-fed. So we, the non-federal partners, the state and Sabufka, will have to come up with more cash for that program, assuming we're successful in getting FEMA money to advance the construction. We're also working closely with Calpine and DWR to look at possibly advancing design and permitting on the remainder of the Sutter Bypass. We're in the process of trying to convince DWR that it's in their favor to do that. And so we would need cash available to advance that also. So next one is the City of Orville levee repair. So we finally received the Army Corps' report, their levee safety report. And we reviewed that along with DWR and the City of Orville staff, and we had a really good, positive meeting yesterday, providing our input into the Corps' study. They did a fantastic job in the short amount of time that they had to do it. We were all impressed with the outcomes. They're going to finalize that report. And the good news there is the state is going to take that up through their leadership to try to look for some opportunities for funding to advance the creation of a levee operation manual, and then also possibly a flood safety plan for the city. So we're looking at some additional funding opportunities through the state to help the city advance their program up there. On the last bullet here, the federal project. So we finally finished that process through the Army Corps' headquarters and the Assistant Secretary of the Army to approve the project partnership agreement amendment. And we signed that just a few weeks ago. Next slide, please. Well, this is the picture from the signing ceremony. So obviously that's me on the left. That's Darren Sewin next to me. That's the new colonel, Colonel McTighe. I just got to meet him at that signing ceremony. So that was a good meeting. I was able to talk about all of our projects underway and what his staff is working on our behalf. So that was a really positive meeting. And then board president, Central Valley Board, Jane Dolan was also there. So we all signed our respective project partnership agreement amendments, and then so that was a really positive day. Kim Floyd's working on a public release. She's working on behalf of both Sajafka and Sabufka, and once that is finalized, I'll send that out to the board. Next slide, please. Okay, so Orville Wildlife Area, Robinson's Riffle Project. As you're aware, we received the $1.1 million planning grant from DWR for this project. We received the $2.1 million design and permitting grant from CDFW. We're advancing towards 90% designs on that project now, working very closely with our state partners, DWR and CDFW. We're also in discussions, and we're working towards a large grant with the Wildlife Conservation Board to provide the construction funding for this project. We received a draft grant from the Wildlife Conservation Board staff in the amount of just slightly under $32 million. So it's a huge grant. It'll provide all the funding to construct the project. And so we're working closely with their staff to take this to their board in November, so just next month. And if we're successful and the board approves it, we will get that large grant to construct the project. And if that happens, we'll be ready to construct that project in 2027. So not next year, so we'll be still finalizing designs and permits, and then we'll be out in construction in 2027 on that project. So we're very hopeful. We're keeping our fingers crossed. Unfortunately, the BRIC program went sideways on us, so we don't want that to happen again. So we don't want to get too excited, but we're working closely with the Wildlife Conservation Board on this grant. So it's looking very positive. On the next project, in the same geographical area, the Thermalito Afterbay Boat Ramp and Campground project, we are hoping to go out to bid this month. Our plans are essentially finalized. We're waiting on FERC approval, and DWR is coordinating that approval through the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to give us the green light to go out to bid. And we're hoping to be out to bid in the next couple of weeks with the hope that we open bids in December and understand, if we have favorable bids or not. And if we need additional money, we can work with the WCB on some possible additional funding for that project. But we're hopeful that bids will come in right around what our estimates are, but we won't know until we open bids. Assuming we open bids in December, we would come back to this board in February and award a construction contract and begin construction next year. So there's a lot going on that project, on both of those Orville Wildlife Area projects.
Michael, you sure that WCB money's there?
Yes.
They've really had their feathers trimmed,
Yeah, they did, but there's money there's money there.
locked in.
Yep.
And you think we could get that, change the Conley Riffle project rather than Robinson Riffle?
There's discussions there.
Build a little monument, a bill up there somewhere?
No, lowering the levee's more important, but we could call that Conley's Combat Fishing. MMA sponsors.
Yeah, we're excited about both of those projects. So more to come. More, we'll keep everybody apprised on where we're at, and it's exciting times right now for that. We're also working closely with FEMA on the remapping of Sutter County. That's a slow, drawn-out process. Chris and his team keep addressing any comments from the FEMA and their consultants, and that continues to move forward. And the last two projects, there hasn't been a lot ongoing from a Sabufka standpoint on those two projects, but we're keeping ourselves apprised, and we'll be providing our input when the time is right for those projects. Next slide, please. So again, we're in flood season. We've talked about this for the past few months. We'll continue this dialogue as we move forward into flood season, keeping our close eye on the weather. We don't know what's going to happen. We do have the flood season prep meeting later this month on the 28th at Veterans Hall right across the street. We'll probably hear there's a 50-50 chance of wet or dry. It's pretty much what we get every year. But we'll see. It is, from what I hear, a La Nina pattern. But that doesn't mean exactly what you're going to get on any particular year. But some La Ninas have been very high snowpacks, a lot of precipitation. So we're just going to keep a real close eye on where things go. Next slide, please. This is my last slide. So there's also, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, there was a Army Corps levee inspection scheduled for November 3rd and 4th. Sean Menard just mentioned this. Was it this one that got canceled because of the federal government shutdown? Okay, so that's what we heard. So we're not sure. We'll keep an eye on things. I know the Army Corps is still working, and maybe without pay, but they had scheduled this 2-day boots on the ground levee inspection. But Sean Menard, LD1's engineer, heard that maybe it was canceled. So we're going to verify that. And then lastly, our next board meeting next month on the 12th, where we'll come back with, as Seth discussed, all the bond refinancing package of information that the board will need to approve so that we save the agency money. And we'll have a few other items in November. So with that said, Mr. Chairman, turn it back to you and the board and see if there's questions.
Any questions? Yes, sir.
Michael, when's the next valuation for our level of protection on the Feather River levees? 200, 100 year. I know we have to get the east levee done, but what's the next?
Yeah, so no, we have 200 years. So we've certified 200-year level of protection for the urban areas. It's not until we really complete the entire Sutter Bypass East Levee can we achieve the 100-year for the southern portion of the basin.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right, Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, a couple questions, Michael. One is I didn't hear anything on what was the pipe situation going over the Tudor east or west levee project. Did we get that resolved?
No, so it's a great question. I should have mentioned that. So the Central Valley Flood Protection Board's attorney is working with the landowner's attorney on whether or not they're going to sign the encroachment permit as is, or if both sides will maybe work on some modified language. So we're kind of at a standstill until that gets worked out.
But there is 2 pipes in the levee now?
No, we've removed all the pipes because we've constructed the cutoff wall through there. So next year is when we'll go back in and either put their pipe back in or not, depending on whether they're going to sign the permit.
Okay, my other question was on the Orville levee. I heard you talk about the putting the manuals and everything together. What other details you have on that as far as, are they recommending construction or going?
Yeah, good question. So they did have a list of recommendations. One was, get an operation and maintenance manual put together, flood safety plans, go out and do additional geotechnical borings and analysis. I can't remember some of the other. There's an area in the park that they recommended removal of a retaining wall and increasing bettering the slope of the levee in that area. So they recommended some physical improvements also. They were really looking at from a life safety perspective, whether or not that levee would fail under certain hydraulic conditions. They determined that it wasn't the highest ranking from a life safety perspective, but it could not be certified from a FEMA perspective. So there's that balance there. So they look at it from one lens versus how FEMA would look at it. So if FEMA came in, they would remap that portion of the city that would flood under a levee failure in that area. The city couldn't certify it in its current condition.
So are they recommending that eventually it gets redone, or?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they recommended a series of steps that the city needs to go through to make improvements on that levee.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So with that pipe that you were talking about at the last meeting, so it's out of our hands now and it's with
Correct. It's with the Central Valley Board and the landowner on whether or not the landowner will sign that encroachment permit.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? All right, thank you. Meeting adjourned.